Hello everyone, welcome to another lecture on C++ programming language. We are on lecture 51 in C++. In this lecture, we're going to talk about array on C++. What is an array in C++? So arrays are used to store multiple values in a single variable. So if we need to store a list of values of the same data type, we need to use arrays. Before, on other lectures, we studied about variables. If you remember, if we declare a variable, for example, integer number is equal to 10, so it means this variable, which is the name is number, only can store one value at the same time. So for example, if I cout number and if I run the program, we can see the value of the number is 10. But if I change the value of this variable in another line, you can see here, I can say number is equal to 20. But I cout again this number. If I run, so if you can see now the value of number become 20, and it means our variable only can store one value at the same time. But if we want to store multiple values or a group of values of the same type, so we need to declare an array. For example, if we want to store a list of student names, like if we have 50 students in a class, so if we declare variables to store their names, so we need 50 variables. But if we use an array, we can declare one array and we define the size of array 50, and we can store all the names of students inside a single array. So now let's declare how we can declare an array in our program and you can use it. So first, we need to declare an array. How we can declare? It's very easy. So if I declare an array of integers, so I define int, the data type, then the name of the array, so I can numbers, and then I need to define the size of the array here inside a square bracket. For example, I want to store inside this array 5 numbers, and then I can start like inside this array I can store number 10, then 20, 30, 40, and 50. If you can see here, I declared an array called numbers, and the size of this array is 5. So it means we can only store inside this array 5 numbers. So we can say I store 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. So when we want to store a value inside the array, so we use the equal sign, then we use the curly brace, and we close the curly brace, and inside the curly brace we can use the value for the array, and we separate by the comma. So if I declare another array like a string, like I string countries, and here I want to store 3 countries. So here I can say, like for example, I can say USA, then I can store UK, then I can store, Canada. So here I declared another array which is called countries, and this array has the size of this array is 3, means it can store only 3 values. So I stored USA, UK, Canada, and I can and I can declare an array of type of float. So for example, float, and here I can say scores, and here the type should be like the size should be 4, and it's equal to like any number which I want. So because I have 4, the size of the array is 4, so now I can store only 4. But how can we access and use, for example, if I want to access the first element of the numbers, how can I use that and I can access? So to access the array, use the index. So in array we have index. If we want to modify or access the value of an element of an array, we use index, and the index start in an array, index starts with 0, and the last index, like it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 for the numbers variable, numbers array, if you can see here. So if I want to print out the first element of the numbers, so I can here see out, I can put here numbers 0. It means if I run this program, we can see here it's print number 10. Why? Because I declared here I want to access the value of the numbers array, which is located on index 0, which is the first element. If I see out number 1 and number 2, or I can change here this one to the number 4, the last element. So if I run, you can see here 10, 20, and 50, because the 50 is the last element. If I want to change, I can change the value of an element. For example, I want to change the index 0 or the number 10, and instead of 10 I should put here 5. How I can do that? So I can write here the name of the array. So it means we modify the value of the array. So here I can write numbers. I can say in index 0 change the index 0 to the, for example, 100. And now if I print the index 0, see out number 0, so let's check. It's print out the 100, because I changed the first element. So the same way, this is called declaration and initialization. So here I declared declaration and initialization. At the same time I declared an array, and also I stored values inside that. But I can I can only I can clean this. I can store an array, but I don't need to at the same time initialize it. For example, I can integer for example integer h, and I want to put the size of this h array should be 10. But right now it doesn't have any value. But if I want to add values in this array or initialize it, so this is called declaration. This is called declaration. We did at the time of declaration you must define the data type, the name of the array, and also the size of the array, because the array is fixed size. Once you declare an array, you cannot change the size of the array. Like this one is the 5, so I cannot store another variable like 60 or 50 here. So here I declared the array, and now I want to initialize it. Initialization. How I can initialize it? So as we know, I want to, the first element of this h variable I can store 5. The second element I can store, for example, 10. The third element I can store 20. The fourth element I can store 30. So the same way, if I can print out this, so for example, see out, and I want ages, I want to print the first element of the age. So if I can run the program, it says 5. But if I change this one to the second element, which becomes the third element of the array, so it will be 20. So it means I can declare an array, then later I can, assign values to that one. Or I can declare and initialize an array at the same time, you know. So this is, how you can initialize and we can declare and use it. But the thing is, if we have an array here, if we have an array of, 100 numbers, so it's difficult, to print every time, like you just need to, see out and tell print number 0, then print number 1, then print the third element, then print the fourth element, then print the fifth element. So this array only has five elements, but we can do it see out, every time. But if the elements of an array become like 1 million, so is it feasible to use the same see out like this? No. So if I write this program, I can see here, we printed, the content of this array. But to print out the value of an array, we can use for loop. It's so easy to use for loop. So first, we need to use for loop. How we can use the for loop? So for, I know, now I can start integer, I is equal to 0 because array index start from the 0. It should go and less than 5 because the number of elements in the array is 5. And now here I can print out, like I can say cout numbers I. So the first time when the array, when the loop is executed, so the I is 0, so it print number 0, So it means it's print number 10. The second time it become 1, so it's print number 2. So the same way it's become third, fourth, and fifth. So if we run this program again, so we can see 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And this is how we can, print out. Or we can also use to print the element of an array using for each loop. In modern C++, we have for each loop. And the for each loop is used, to iterate or to loop through all elements of an array. For example, if I write here string an array of countries, and it should be 5 countries, like I can write here USA, I can write here UK, then we have another country, Canada, then we have, another country, Russia, then we have another country like China. So this is 5 countries because we declared an array of size of 5, so it only store 5 countries. But if I want to print out the value of these arrays, so I need to use for. But we have in modern C++, we have for each loop. So how we can use for each? So here I declare a variable called string, and I put the name of the variable. I can put country, and it should loop from the countries. So here is, I declared a variable type string, and the name of the variable is country, and then I define the colon. Colons actually separates the variable name with name of the array. So our name of the array is countries. So now here I can see out country. What happens here, and the first iteration of the loop, the country contains the USA. So it copies the first element inside the country, and then it print. So it's print USA. Then it goes the second element, UK. It takes that UK, the second element inside, and put it inside country, and then print it out. Then it goes to another element till the end. So if we run this program, you can see here, we can see a list of countries: USA, UK, Canada, Russia, China. And this for each loop is much more easier than using the for loop. But if I use, instead of for, if I use for each loop, so it becomes much more easier, So what I can do here, it only takes 2 parameters, yes? So I can write here, I can change this one here. I can put integer because that is numbers, and I can put integer, for example, x, and I say numbers. So now here, loop through the numbers, which is the name of array, and print out the x. So now I can compile and run the program. As you can see 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So this is, how you can, declare an array, and how you can initialize it, and how you can print out the arrays, So how you can access the arrays by, index, which the array index always, start from 0. And we can also find the array, size. If you want to find the array size, we have a function called size of. We need to use size of. For example, if I cout, I can say here cout, and I write here array size is, because you have to know. Then we use size of numbers, for example. So if I run the program, what do we see here? Let's check. Array size is 20, but if we check here, the array size is not 20, yes? Do you see? This is 5. But why the arrays, this size of functions, print the size of the array in bytes. So we need to divide this one to the number of the first element. So if we can see, every element of this array takes 4 bytes, because this is integer array. So this is 4 byte, this is 4 byte, this is 4 byte, this is 4 byte, this is 4 byte. So total become 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. It's become 20 bytes. But if you want to see the real size of the array, we need to divide the number of the total number of bytes of the array into the first element. The size of numbers, I can see here numbers 0. But if I run this program again, so I can see the size of this array. It says the array size is 5. But if I want to check this array size, so we know cout. So now array size is, so size of countries divide by size of the first element, because the first element contains that one. So the same way we can use for this array as well. Any array you want to use it. And also another thing which I want to in this lecture which I want to cover, it is if we declare an array here, for example, if we declare an array integer, like the name of the array ages, and I want to store 5 here. So we can also store the size of the array inside a variable. Integer size is equal to 5. And now here I can say size. So this size of the array is 5, It means this array, which the name of age, only store 5 values. But can we take the value from the keyboard for this array or not? Yes, of course, but we can use for loop, okay, to take a value. For example, so let's here what I can do, I can see here cout, and I can say here enter the value for, okay. So here I can use value for first element, or I can say for the value for I, or element 0 for element. Here I can say I and inline, and then I can see cn hi. So anytime I want to store the value inside the h variable, So which our array is called age. So I want to store the value inside this age variable, and then I can also use for each loop to print out, for example, integer I or integer x from the ages, and then cout x. So here I start from I equal to 0, is size of the array, which is 5, that's correct. Cout, enter the value for element, the first element, which I can say here, I can check, like I plus. Then whenever user enters, we need to enter that value inside that index of the array. So let's, run this program. You can see here, enter the value for element 0, So I enter, for example, 10. And then enter for element 1, I enter 20. Then enter 30, then enter 40, then enter 50. You can see I entered 4 elements here from the keyboard. But it's better we can use this one, I plus 1. If you use this I plus 1, so this one, because our index start from 1, so it will be better, element. And I put here, and also I can put here, like quotation, colon, quotation, and this inline. And now if I run this program, it's better, You can see it says, hey, enter the value for element 1. So I can enter, for example, 10. Enter the value for element 2. So on, enter the value for element 3. 30. Enter the value for element 4. 40. Enter the value for element, 5. So 50. And then when I enter, it prints out, also. So this is a kind of, you can also get, the value of an array from the keyboard if you want, like from the user so the user can enter those values, So this was to the lecture, and it was lecture 51, and thank you for watching this lecture, and see you on the next lecture.